Hello and welcome to a brand new set of previews for new Dominion cards. We have finally arrived the day for Rising Sun previews, and this time I have a special guest with me.
Yay.
Yes, this is Yay, and she will be joining me for for the entire week of previews that we will be doing. So as usual with the both the new expansion and I guess the 2E previews that have been released, there will be 5 days of previews. This is the first day, and we will be talking through our thoughts on them every day. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for having me. I will be able to give insights on my thoughts on the art. No,
Yeah.
I will try to. I'm not like thinking about Dominion as analytical as you do, but yeah, I'm happy to look at these things together.
Yes. All right. So previews. Day 1 is Omens and Prophecies, as it was foretold so long ago, so it has come to pass. The Dominion Rising Sun expansion. Here I am with previews, says Donald X. So the future of Dominion is things that happen in the future.
Wow.
Guess that makes sense. Prophecies are landscapes that change the game but don't apply at the start of the game. It takes omens being played a certain number of times before they happen. And omens are just cards with a sun symbol, which means you remove a token from the prophecy. Let's see some of each. So we start out with 3 omens: River Shrine, Rustic Village, and Poet. So do you have any thoughts on the art before we talk through the cards?
I have thoughts on like Rustic Village. That is rustic like a word that is like slightly has like negative connotations?
I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
I think if anything, it's probably. I mean, it depends on your preferences, but I would say overall it's probably slightly positive.
Okay.
Like, it's kind of like quaint. No,
It's not like rusty. I kind of like in my
no,
head.
no, no, no. It has nothing to do with rust.
What does it mean?
It means like kind of rural and kind
Is
of
it like
charming and
picturesque?
yeah, like natural.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love the shrine picture. It's beautiful. I'm not sure that, well, I mean, there's Way of the Otter, right? So there is absolutely a way to like miss the assignment there. In general, I would say with card art. I was gonna say like I don't know how you
Wait,
can
what?
go wrong with a shrine picture, but someone went wrong with the otter picture, so I'm not gonna go there.
I did not realize that was a problem.
My first thought with the Rustic Village art was like, is that a dinosaur? But I think
so.
it's a dog or something.
Yeah,
What do you think it is? Like the head looks so strange, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't
I feel like
know.
the Rustic Village art is a little too busy. I don't like the composition of it. Love the poet picture. It's you can tell that the directions are now much clearer with like this is the gender and race of people we want in this specific art, and I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
I think mostly I think Poet and Rivershine look nice, and I think the person on the left in Rustic Village looks odd. Their head is a little bit misshapen, I would say. That's most of my thoughts.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I feel like River Shrine is should be a background. Like it's just made to be background art. It's meant to be like hang on your wall in a picture frame. It's beautiful.
I did try to guess some like names that were like blank shrine in the card guessing game, but I did not actually get get that correct. Any case, so let's go through the actual cards.
All right.
So first we have River Shrine, 4-cost action Omen, +1 Sun token, which is actually kind of like -1. It sounds like, because it says you remove a token from the prophecy. Although I guess I don't know where you're moving the token to, or removing the token to. But in any case, trash up to 2 cards from your hand. So that's already, potentially pretty strong, like steward-like card. At the start of cleanup, if you didn't gain any cards in your buy phase this turn, gain a card costing up to 4.
Oh, so it's a combination of steward and workshop.
Yeah, well, although it's if you didn't gain any cards in your buy phase, so it's more like.
Oh, did you see the rising sun symbol? That's nice.
Cherry blossom.
Okay, sorry.
I think that was actually already confirmed. It came up in like the wiki channel.
Imagine a channel.
Anyway, so the effect is more similar to like how you gain Madman or how you activate exploration, right? So like as far as being a workshop goes, it's not gonna be a workshop for that long. But
it sounds like it's a pretty good card to open.
Yeah, you can. It's a trasher that even though you're gonna not hit price points with it, you like Steward has a thing where you get Steward and then you trash and you do nothing with your buy phase, right? And so this means that you can do nothing with your buy phase, but then you can actually get a card.
Yeah, it's like alms. That's nice.
Yeah, that's another way of looking at it. Yeah, is alms. I mean, alms is certainly like more flexible, but yeah, this has some similarity with alms. Yeah, I think this will be a good opener. Like who knows about the Omen token or the prophecy token thing and like what that does to the card strength, but just in terms of like if we put that aside, I think it is effectively like a tempo trasher, just in a different way than a card like a Moneylender or Bounty Hunter, where it's helping you hit a price point. This is not helping you hit a price point, so it's not going to be as appealing when you want to hit 5 for a witch or something. But if you just are like, hey, well, there's some villages that cost up to 4. There's some draw cards that cost up to 4, whatever kind of stuff like that, then this will be pretty fantastic. And even if there aren't, like, you trashing 2 cards is still pretty good. So like you're probably going to want it.
Yeah. How do you feel about the symbol, the Omen symbol?
It doesn't really, to be honest, it doesn't really evoke like an Omen to me. I feel like that should be like maybe like a comet or something, although I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But maybe there's like an actual chit that's like a little sun shape.
Yeah. I'm for sure there's. I need to get used to it, but it feels a little, I don't know, it feels a little placeholdery to me. It doesn't feel like the real. Maybe just because, like, if you compare it to the debt or coin or like whichever else, or maybe it's the color, but yeah, it's kind of feels like there's I don't know, someone tampered with the text and put in like a thing. That's what it looks like right now.
Well, speaking of debt, this is the first like new card text symbol that we've gotten since Empires, I believe. Where so it doesn't say +1 whatever.
What was it with
like allies, for instance, say +1 favor. It's just the word favor.
Oh, that's true. Oh, that's an interesting choice then.
Yeah.
Oh, it's because of the tokens, right? Because there are tokens.
Presumably. Well, and maybe because, like, I mean, so far we don't even know what the token itself is called. So
although you also have tokens for favors and villagers and coffers.
Correct. But all 3 of those say the word villager, coffer, favor, rather than having a symbol. Like debt has a symbol.
No, I know, but that's a choice then, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Like it can't be about the token. thing because all of these are tokens.
It's not just about the token. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. So next up we have Rustic Village. So speaking of villages that cost up to 4 that you can gain with your River Shrine.
Hello.
4 cost Omen, +1 doodad, +1 card, +2 actions. You may discard 2 cards for +1 card.
Ooh. Okay. So it's an optional velocity. Discarding
no.
2 cards sounds expensive.
Yeah, I would say it's like an optional vault effect, basically.
Or in,
well,
maybe.
Opponent vault effect.
Or in?
Yes,
It's an optional in.
It's worse than in because you don't get to see the cards before you discard them. Like you don't get to see the second card before you discard in.
Oh,
you
that's
draw
true.
the 2 cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it's also better than in. Well, putting aside in's on gain, it's better than in because you can just play it as a vanillage and it doesn't have to like decrease your hand size.
Mm-hmm.
So like, to me that effect does not look very good. Like if you think about, I mean, you'll use it more than you would like your opponent's vault because you're not just looking at your starting hand when you do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about like how infrequently you do that, it's like, I don't know. Like, I mean, early in the game it'll be better because you're more likely to, if you have an estate in hand, even if you discard estate copper and draw a copper, you've still cycled and you haven't made your hand any worse. That sort of thing. And obviously in like a junky game, that'll be helpful. And if you really need to like find, your draw card or whatever that it's like you want to find your smithy and you have the actions for it, but you don't have it in hand. You try to find it, but I still think the effect is not that strong. Like as villages go, I would expect this one to be middling to below average.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like it is a pretty steep price to pay.
Yeah. I will say it sounds lovely if you have a kingdom with Trail or whichever else.
Village Green Weaver.
Yeah.
This card with Weaver is going to be pretty silly because you're going to like be able to use the Weaver to gain more rustic villages or more Weavers, of course.
Yeah. Or like Courier or something. Like all of those like good cards that do stuff with discard.
Yeah. Well, Courier it's more about like getting actions than the other 3 basically turn this into more like draw.
Mm-hmm.
With Courier it's more like, I mean, this is already a village, so being able to put the card into your discard to be able to play it essentially like non-terminally is not as impactful, I think, but it is still nice to like be able to guarantee that your courier is going to see something useful.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it can like allow you to avoid picking up a bad card with Mountain Village, but I don't know. Like that's a lot of villages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, next up we have Poet. 4 cost action Omen. So all of these are 4 cost action omens. And we get +1 doodad, +1 card, +1 action. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it costs 3 or less, put it into your hand. So.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like usually I don't really have a good idea about preview cards just because I have to like actually play with them to know if that's good or not, but that again feels like something that's good if you don't have trashing and like it's a good card to open with. I'm not sure if it's that good the longer you go into the game and have trashing and potentially don't really have cards that cost 3 or less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is
it's pretty expensive for that to be the effect.
Yes.
Like for it being a cantrip and that.
Yeah. So this is the most comparable things here are Seer and Will-O-Wisp. So Will-O-Wisp doesn't draw as much stuff, but it self synergizes, and obviously the way you gain it is completely different, so it's kind of a hard comparison to make. Seer, like this card, doesn't draw itself. Has a different like cost range, but also obviously looks at more cards. I'm not actually sure I would say this is good to open. I mean, it's not bad. Like lab in the opening, and this is going to be a lab in the opening because
it just
outside
helps
of
you sifting, right?
yeah, I
Or
mean
not
outside
sifting,
of
but
outside of like some like fairly narrow range of cases, like if you open this, you are going to open it with either nothing, I suppose, or a card that costs 3 or less. So you like it is going to be guaranteed to draw if you open it, which is good, but like a lot of times, not all the time, I don't think this is bad in the opening by any means, but a lot of times like the key card that you want to be drawing towards is going to be a 4 cost, and so like this is competing the 4 cost slot. If it was 3 cost, I think this would be a lot stronger in the opening, because then you could combine it with, you know, with like your strong 4 cost like Trasher or whatever, and that would like, you know, that would be like really nice synergy. And obviously sometimes it is going to be something like Steward, and then like opening this in Steward, that seems pretty good. But you know, we talked about, you know, cards like, you know, like the other tempo trashers, like, you know, Priest or Bounty Hunter or Moneylender or what have you. Like I don't know what the distribution is, but I would say it feels to me like it's more common that there's going to be like that competition in the 4 cost slot. That's going to make it harder to open with this.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are all 4 cost cards, so maybe that's why. But I'm noticing that like you can only gain 1 Omen token. I wonder if there will be cards where you can get more.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see whether like how many omens you even need to activate the prophecies, right? Like we don't really have any idea of that yet.
Yes.
But I have some other thoughts about Poet, because there is more of the game left than than just the opening.
What?
Yeah, I know. So like Seer, this will be good with cost reduction, except better. Well, not better than Seer like straight up necessarily, but it will benefit more than Seer will, because not only will it start drawing itself, but you won't have to worry about like over cost reduction, which Seer has to worry about. So any amount of cost reduction will be beneficial to this card, and more cost reduction will just be better and better and better until the point where it's like it doesn't matter anymore and you're drawing everything regardless. But
I mean, the crucial difference too is that I mean, that is true regardless, right? Like depending on how far you can reduce the cost, it will be able to always draw. But also like the crucial difference, of course, is that you only look at the top card.
Yeah, it's still
and not like the 3.
The ceiling is that it's only a lab, but it is not a 5 cost. So I mean, you know, it's lab for 4 is pretty good. It's not, honestly, I mean, lab for 4 is not like, you know, totally cracked or whatever. It's, you know, like you can, like if you think about like Destrier, right? How excited are you about Destrier at 4? Well, I mean, part of the reason you're not as excited as you might be is because you know that Destrier can cost less than 4, but still, it's not like the most amazing thing ever, but it's still good. And like this card will, like, you know, if you have like a village, this card would like absolutely be enough draw to let you do like a bridge troll mega turn, which, you know, the bridge troll would help you draw your deck with the poet. So, beyond that, yeah, I mean, I think this is the sort of card that kind of like the other like unreliable like pseudo labs, like, you know, Wishing Well and Sea Chart, and I mean, I guess Wisp, although like I said, Wisp is kind of different, but like I think it's the kind of card where you're going to get it a lot of the time when it's there, because it will be the best option that you have, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to do all that much. Like a lot of the time you're just going to be like, oh, I played my 5 poets and I drew 1 or 2 cards,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, of course it depends a lot on what the kingdom looks like, but yeah, it's gonna be. I expect this card to get some bad press, let's say, because of people being like, you know, like for some of the similar reasons that people complain about some of those other kinds of cards, the conditional like draw cards.
Mm-hmm. How do you think what the card does ties back to what it's named after? I'm trying to come up with like why this is the poet. It's like sometimes you draw, sometimes you don't, sometimes you score.
Sometimes your poem is good and sometimes it's not. I really have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Shrine, the River Shrine makes sense.
Yes.
Trashing,
Yeah.
you know, religious card.
Strong religious
Rustic Village,
theme.
obviously. Like, why Rustic Village in particular should have discard 2 cards for +1 card, I don't know. But, like, it's a village.
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, their labor efforts are inefficient because they don't have, like, you know, they don't have a lot of specialization there. Like, you just have people who aren't particularly good at a thing doing the thing. I don't know. That's it's just it's a village. You came up with a name for a village, and then it has a village effect, whatever. But yeah, poet, I have no idea.
Doesn't it look like a dinosaur to you? I can't get over like this animal there.
It's like, to me, it's like, can't. I don't know, like a sloth or an anteater or something.
Oh, okay. I'm just Western centric is all. Yeah. Okay, fine.
All right. Well, let's move on to the prophecies, of which we also have 3. So the first one we have is Rapid Expansion. When you gain an action or treasure, set it aside and play it at the start of your next turn. So, okay, so that just makes everything hasty.
Hasty.
Yeah. Which is like...
It's like for the rest of, like, forever?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's very impactful in multiple ways.
Yeah, super. It's like, say goodbye to gain and play.
Yeah, it is. But it's also, like, and if you have anything that, like, is contingent on what you've already got, like, in play. So, like, you know, you're gonna have, like, some potentially really sad, like, Horn of Plenty, Bank, like, Pendant,
Fairy Treasure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sea Chart. If you don't have some
sea
stuff.
Chart?
Yeah, because Sea Chart wants you to have other stuff in play. Like, but if you don't have other stuff in play, and then the Sea Chart, like, can't draw anything.
Okay.
If you set aside, if you buy a Sea Chart and you set it aside and you play it at the start of your next turn, I mean, you get +1 action.
I see what you mean. Okay.
But compared to, like, you know, another cantrip or whatever, the Sea Chart's like, oh, I get to do my thing very effectively. I mean, you potentially can if you have, like, durations or whatever, and that's also true of, like, Horn of Plenty or whatever. But yeah, there's some stuff that could be pretty awkward with this, but that's not really the thing to focus on, probably, compared to this basically also being like a sort of ongoing, like, prepare effect where it
sounds pretty wild, honestly.
It does sound pretty wild. Yeah, you're just like,
it sounds like a rapid expansion.
Yeah, you're gonna your deck's like, yes, it hurts gain and play, and that's a pretty big deal, but it does, like, the name is pretty apt, as you say, because it does mean that your deck's capabilities are going to ramp a lot more quickly, because rather than needing to shuffle and then actually play the cards to see your cards, like, you don't need to shuffle to reach them, you don't need to draw them, you don't need actions to play them, it's just there it is.
Yeah.
And it's, so, you know, a lot of modern Dominion is about tempo, and this is just like super tempo focused.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely a great incentive to get those Omen cards, and, like, regardless of their own merit, I would say.
Rip night cards. Like Den of Sin and Ghost Town are like, hey, my thing is that when you gain this, you get to play it immediately. That's cool. That's tempo. And then this is like, screw that. Like, I buy
You
a
can still
village.
do that.
Well, yeah, but I buy like compare like Village with this to Ghost Town. Ghost Town's like +1 card +1 action.
Yeah.
Village is +1 card +2 actions, and it's not like stuck in play. Like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's not a bad card the next time you draw it. Like yeah.
Yes, wild. Very much looking forward to playing this and seeing this in play.
Yeah, it should be pretty game warping, as I'm kind of expecting that a lot of these will be, but I guess we'll see. So next up we've got Panic. When you play a treasure, +2 buys, and when you discard one from play, return it to its pile.
Whoa, that sounds wild as well. And it's wild that these just apply at some point. And like you have to, okay, so you never have to worry about buys ever again, but you have to worry about your payload.
Well, you might have to worry about buys, right? I mean, you all your treasures get returned to the piles, and then you don't have any anymore.
Exactly, yeah. So you have to use these buys, like some of these buys, to like rebuy treasures.
Well, maybe, or maybe you just don't play with treasures and you get your buys from your actions and you just play action payload. I don't know. Like it would depend.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a weird form of reckless. Like
it's like it's kind of like a mix of reckless and maelstrom, kind of, because like you can use this as trashing if the prophecy like
that's true
runs.
That's true. Just like get a bunch of omens and then like, oops, I trashed all my coffers. It's like bonfire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Now, there are ways to get around this. So some examples of ways to get around this would be things like Herbalist or Trickster, where you you either top deck or set aside a treasure instead of cleaning it up. Another thing to note with this is another wait, no, it's not. It's when you discard it from play. Okay, so you do. Yeah, I was gonna say, is this another capitalism hack? Not capitalism, capital hack, but no, it's not, because you do discard it from play. So, like, you will still take the debt from capital. So
and then the capital is gone. Sounds bad to me.
Yeah, no, it is.
Unless you King's Cash your capital.
Oh, Crypt. That's another one. Yeah, you get around this if you want to.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right. Like in general, you prefer like action card payload.
Well, maybe.
Do you?
I'm not sure if I would say payload. Like, it is off. It is often the case that action cards are stronger than treasures to account for the fact that actions cost an action to play. But when it comes to payload in particular, I don't think it necessarily follows that you actively want action card payload. Like sometimes it's just about like, what's the most efficient way to put payload into your deck? And sometimes it's not even necessarily about like how good the payload itself is. It's like how good the thing that acquires the payload is, right? So like if you have a gold gainer, obviously gold is better. Is a better payload option in that scenario, but like when you have to buy gold, it's very inefficient because it's like slow to accumulate.
Yeah.
And so I think it just depends on, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Panic just makes it so much less likely to buy like any treasure that is not a copper or a silver.
Yeah. This does not get rid of loot, probably. Return it to its pile. Loot isn't a pile, right?
Oh, interesting. It is a treasure, but yeah. And spoils?
Spoils is a pile, and also spoils does that already, does that? But yeah. But
stockpile?
Stockpile would not, because stockpile never gets cleaned up. It just goes into exile.
Okay.
I mean, stockpile in a way has this problem already, but like just not as immediately.
You think that's where you came up with it? It's like, let's make it
Let's make all the treasures stockpile.
Yeah.
Except that you can't get them back, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
which is a
yeah,
big
yeah.
difference.
Oh, yeah, for
But
sure.
or I
I'm
mean, you
just
can
like,
get them back, but not in the same way. Like, it
yeah,
doesn't have that like
yeah.
accumulation effect.
I'm just already like, I'm already afraid for all of my Platina and King's Caches and like all the 5 cost treasures. I'm like,
Right.
no,
Right.
this is bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's going to be boards where this is extremely frustrating, and you're like, I guess I'm like buying coppers so that I can. It's like I get 2 buys with this, and I spend one of the buys to buy a copper so that I can have a treasure the next turn, so that I can get my plus buy again.
Yes.
Because I don't have a way to get rid of my action cards.
Yeah. And it's also kind of, I mean, I don't know how often this actually happens, and it very much depends on the treasure cards, obviously, but it's also kind of a card like Experiment, like Travelers, like Encampment, where you have to remember that things go back to the
for
pile.
pile-up purposes. Yep. I mean, it's going to be hard. I imagine with Panic and Play, it's going to be hard on a lot of boards to even have like a Treasure Kingdom card pile be low to the point where you're worried about it piling out.
That's right.
But you maybe. I mean, you know, depending on like if you do have some workaround like Crypt or whatever, then maybe exactly like what you're talking about. You're like, oh, aha, like, you know, I'm going to be able to pile out, you know, and then you're like, oops, I just returned 3 of them to the pile. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. But you're right. I don't know how likely that is actually, because like your opponent has also maybe like on their turn they will play treasures that will then return to. I don't know. Yeah. Like I said, I need to watch these in action to be able to like, gauge that correctly. But yeah, seems wild to me. These prophecies are super interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's see if the third one is as crazy. Kind Emperor. At the start of your turn, and when you remove the last sun token, gain an action to your hand. Okay, yeah, that's pretty insane.
Wow. Wow.
So like they want. Okay, so this is
just like speed.
Yeah, this is well, and the fact that it's when you remove
to your
the last
hand.
Yes, to your hand. With the fact that that it's when you remove the last sun token, I think is pretty clearly intended to push you to activate this, because I can see where you might be concerned without that clause, that people would be like, well, I don't want to move towards this because like it's too powerful, it's too crazy. I don't want to deal with it.
Like
I don't want my opponent to have access to this. But then it's like, nah, like you if you're, you know, if you're the one to trigger this, so like,
whoa,
yeah, you get it immediately, you get it mid-turn in that case. So it's like playing a Wish essentially, except more flexible. Well, like, not totally more flexible, because Wish can gain non-action cards, but
it's like Donald X said, this game takes too long. It's like, let me boost this. Well, I don't know how many Omens tokens there are, but I have to imagine that
does seem important.
Yeah,
we're gonna get there. Imagine this with like, but like, you know, something like City Quarter, or like, you know,
although I mean
Possession.
I know that Donald X always like thinks of it as like the standard, or I assume like the standard way to play Dominion is like like it's more than 2-player and it's IRL. So obviously like this is more impactful on a 2-person. In a 2-person. I would think so, because if you have like 4 players, then at least when you remove the last thingy is not that. I feel like it's goes down in terribleness. I don't know.
You mean like it's not as big an advantage relative to the field or something?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I
It's just
think,
like feels huge if you're the person who activates it on like a
yeah. Oh, yeah,
two.
it is. Like, I think, well, I don't know. I think, I mean, and with more players, like, the piles empty faster. So,
That's true as well. Oh, that's true as well.
you
This
know,
like I didn't even think about that. But you also have to like pile more piles, right?
nope,
With four people, yeah. Oh,
no,
isn't it four piles with four people?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Maybe
never
it is
mind.
with 5 players.
Never mind.
I don't know. I've never played with 5 players.
Okay, anyway, like our focus anyway is the two-player
Yeah,
game,
yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah. I mean,
tangent.
these are all insane. Like,
Super insane. What is going
um,
on?
I mean, I will say in general, I like having landscape designs that are like potentially insane. Because that's like one of the ways that you can really like drive variety in games. Obviously, it's risky if it's too insane and too centralizing, and it like every game with that landscape becomes, sort of like a similar experience. But I'm down for some insanity.
And I don't really see that here just because it's not like one-sided, right? Like both people will benefit from it. And
Mm,
then I feel like this is what I like best about landscapes is like you said when it just like changes the dynamic but not in a way that overly like benefits one person. So I really like things like Bandit Fort, for example,
hmm.
and yeah. So these feel, I don't know. I guess like I'm just very very curious and very excited to like see this in action and to play with it because it sounds really fun.
Yeah.
Like very kind of like scary but fun.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Board with Kind Emperor, like if and when that gets activated, it's gonna be really hard to dud, I imagine. Well, not I mean,
Mm,
not on some boards, but on a lot of
mm,
boards, it's gonna be really
mm,
hard to dud because it's
mm.
like, oh,
Yeah,
like whatever component I need to kick off my turn, I can just take.
yeah,
I mean, if the board doesn't have the components that you need to like, have a big turn anyway, then I guess you won't be able to do it. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder I wonder how often, I mean, this is definitely not the most important thing about it, but I wonder how often this will like actively be bad. Like,
Hmm.
you imagine a board where there's like it's like a single terminal board and there's like wall. And then you're like, oh no, I don't want any more action cards in my deck.
And no trashing, yeah.
Yeah, no
Mm.
trashing. Yeah, and probably will not come up very often that you're like, oh, I
No.
wish I didn't have to gain an action cards from my
Yeah.
hands.
Yeah, yeah,
But it
yeah.
could happen. It could
It
happen.
could. The edge cases are there
They
for
are.
sure.
All
But
right.
yeah.
So,
Wait, we have to talk about the art.
okay.
Yeah, Rapid Expansion doesn't excite me. I don't like the color scheme, and like I understand where they go where they're going, but I don't know. The thing, it just reminds me of too much of a cage. It looks like a cage, and I'm like
It looks like
confused.
the cage art as well.
Yeah,
Unsurprisingly.
yeah. Panic, I think I like. Yes, I like the panic art because like you can go places with a name like that, and I like where they took it, where it's not too dramatic, like it's not drastic, but it still conveys the idea. I like that. And the Kind Emperor confuses me. Like the perspective is kind of strange, and I don't under. Is this like a ceremonial weapon, or why is the sword? Why does the sword have like shards, or is that like a cultural? Just how
I
swords look over there.
think it's like a more like a knife than a sword, and I
But
think
that's a shield, isn't it? That's a big knife.
yeah, it's a fairly big knife, but I think this little like indentation business
Yeah.
is um like it to me it looks like, well, yeah, I don't know if that's like a design on the blade or if it's supposed to be like it's in some kind of holster that's not like not completely encasing it. It's just like holding it from one side or something. I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of
I
sense.
see. No.
But it looks like it's like two little clasps.
I don't know because it's like it's got different colors, right? So
Yeah.
like it does look more like an indentation. Yeah, so that not a huge fan. I'm also not a huge fan of the turquoise, I have to admit. I feel like it's a little too dark. If it were like a touch lighter, that would be better. Although then it would run the risk of being like the color of your thumbnails, which I don't like.
The turquoise thing.
I think I would have preferred a different color there.
The turquoise to me, you're not going to know what I mean when I say this, but the turquoise to me looks like the turquoise like object looks like a tadpole from Baldur's Gate 3. So people who have played Baldur's Gate 3, I'm pretty sure will know what I mean.
I was talking about the prophecy color with the turquoise.
Okay.
And like I understand you run out of colors eventually, but
yeah, the contrast, the text. The contrast is probably not high enough between the text color and the background color there. I would say. I think the panic art reminds me of the peril art. It's a kind of like
yes. Yeah. Very
clean
like
lines, like pretty like blurry, fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
I think
very like fine art style.
Yeah,
like expressionism.
Yeah, I will say
impressionism. Sorry.
Yeah, which is like nice, but I will say I'm a little. You said there's different places you could go with a panic, and I have to say I'm a little disappointed that this doesn't look as emojifiable as I would like.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So I still prefer this. I like it. Yeah. Rapid expansion is a miss for me. I like panic. Kind Emperor
is confusing, I will say.
Is confusing, but it's fun to think of the jade element as a tadpole.
Yes, it's a tadpole. But not the good kind of tadpole. But you have to play Baldur's Gate 3 to know more about that. All right, so
yes, more text.
So yes, time to learn more about how all this stuff works. So Donald X says, so let's say Rustic Village is in this game, and also Rapid Expansion, and also it's a 2-player game. Rapid Expansion starts with 5 tokens on it. Each play of Rustic Village.
5?
Yeah.
That sounds so small.
It does. Each play of Rustic Village removes a token. When the last token is removed, now you're going to start setting aside gained actions and treasures and having them leap into play next turn.
Wow.
The prophecy applies to everyone and is just part of the game once that last token leaves it. Further, plus suns don't do anything. There's no guarantee the prophecy will ever happen, but the omens tend to really encourage it.
Like, how... Okay, it's true, there's no guarantee the prophecy will ever happen, but, like, how is it not going to happen if you have a thing like...
Well, if you don't ever gain the cards...
No, obviously, but, like, if you have Kind Emperor or Rapid Expansion, like, that's so heavily encouraged. Like, how are you not gonna... It depends. Well, it depends on the Omen cards. If there's an Omen card that is clearly just, like, bad, then...
Yeah, yes, well, and it's a mutually... Like, it's a more or less symmetrical effect. I mean, it's not entirely symmetrical because of the timing of activation, but like it isn't necessarily the case that one player is going to be incentivized to go for it, you know, because the other player can benefit. I mean, there will be cases where they do. So like you mentioned the panic thing is like a form of trashing. Like if your opponent is like trying really hard to get to, I don't know, Forge or whatever to trash their coppers, and you're just like, I'm not gonna bother with that. I'm just gonna panic. Then, you know, like, yeah, sure. Like there are obviously like asymmetries that can develop from the game state, but in general, like, yeah, I think it's just gonna depend on the omens. I mean, like Rustic Village is a village, so like yeah, you're gonna it's gonna get activated if you have Rustic Village on the board, like very, very probably. River Shrine, here, let me switch this back up so that we can see what we're talking about here. River Shrine
it's so beautiful.
is a good enough trasher that I think it's also quite likely to trigger it. Poet, you know, I can see Poet being skipped sometimes. I guess the other thing is like
You're right. It's like we have to assume, unlike in a regular game that is not like a Rising Sun release or Rising Sun mix, that you probably only have one Omen card. So it's very much like the favors, I guess, the liaisons, where you, if it's a prophecy you don't care for, and the Omen card is weak, then maybe it's not going to be activated.
Yeah. So like poet, I mean, I don't think poet is necessarily weak, but it might be. But it's like you might skip it some of the time, or if you do get it, it might like be a little while before you get it, and so it might not come online so quickly.
Yeah.
The other thing with River Shrine is like conceivably you get it, but then you don't play it that many times, right? Like, I mean, it depends on the game, but like, I don't think it's out of the question that like if you have like if there's another trasher on the board that's like, I don't know, like a better copper trasher, like it's a tempo copper trasher, or maybe you have like an exiler or something where you end up like playing River Shrine like a couple times to trash your estates, or you have a better estate track, like a tempo estate trasher, so you like maybe you play it a couple times to trash coppers, and then like you're like, oh, because of whatever's going on here, like I don't really need to play it like a third time. I'm just gonna like this happens with Steward as it is, like, right? Like Steward, like sometimes you play Steward and you trash all of your starting cards, but sometimes you play Steward a couple times and you're like,
yeah.
And I mean, it's a little bit different with Steward because Steward can also give you coins or cards, and that incentivizes you to do something other than trashing in a way that this card doesn't like have apply. Although this is up to 2 cards as well, so that's another reason that you would be more likely to just go ahead and play it, because you're not like stuck having to trash. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that is a pretty narrow edge case that you're gonna get this, but then not generate 5 tokens. But yeah, it's possible, I guess.
5 tokens is just like,
it's not that many.
If both people gain the Omen card, then the prophecy is activating turn 6, turn 7.
Yeah. If you assume like River Shrine, you assume you both open with River Shrine, you play it turn 3 or turn 4, maybe turn 5, and then like your opponent does the same thing, and then so it wouldn't be turn 6, it'd be like turn 8, like because you're gonna play it again turn 5, 6, maybe 7 if you like bottom decked, and then your opponent's gonna do the same thing, and then like turn 8 is when you're good. This is assuming you don't have any accelerants like that are causing you to see it more rapidly than once every other turn or third turn. Yeah. Rustic Village, is as a village, you're not gonna like open it, so
yeah,
like it might come online a little later.
That's true.
Like, same thing with Poet, so yeah.
I'm assuming that we don't get any 3-cost Omen cards, but
we will see.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there will be conditional omens, right? So like, you get an omen if this, it's like, this thing happens. Like we have conditional favors, right? Like Guildmaster. So it says like you get a favor if, or a student, you get a favor if blah. Like we don't know that we want, like these are just like +1 omen, but maybe there are conditional omens. So that might change things.
That's right.
Okay, we haven't finished going through this. Sorry. So we've talked about 5 tokens, but it's 5 tokens with 2 players, 8 tokens with 3 players, 10 tokens with 4 players, 12 tokens with 5 players, and 13 with 6 players. And so now you know that.
Thank you.
There are 6 omens and 15 prophecies. Oh, only 6 omens. Okay. And you only use 1 prophecy per game, even if there are multiple omens. So
that makes sense.
I guess in the same way that allies only get added to the kingdom if you have a liaison, these are only going to get added to the kingdom if you have an omen. And the fact there's only 6 omens means they're not going to come up that much in full random. Like there's definitely more than 6 liaisons.
Yes.
So yeah, that's interesting because it's interesting to me that there's so many more prophecies than omens, like compared to the ally to liaison distribution in allies.
Yeah.
Not what I would have expected. All right, and then Donald X has some comments about the cards and the prophecies. which I guess we can read through to make sure that we didn't miss anything, because that definitely happens to me.
Never happens to me, but yes.
River Shrine is a trasher and can also gain you a card if you don't gain anything in the buy phase. There are probably situations where that comes in handy. It's cumulative. 2 River Shrines will gain you 2 cards. Right, because it happens during cleanup, so it doesn't block itself. I'm not sure how relevant that is. Like, you're going to get 2 River Shrines, but I would think you would do that generally. But who knows? Rustic Village is simply a village that lets you do a little filtering. It's a poor exchange rate, but you'll do it plenty.
Interesting.
I mean, yeah, it's an interesting. It's interesting that he's just like claiming that up front. Like,
it might just be a point of like experience from.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
So.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, but like. Yeah, I mean, like I said before, in the early game, I think it does make sense that, like, and especially one of the things that can be tricky, early game in Dominion games, when you have like when you're trying to balance your villages and your terminals and trying to get things to line up is, okay, do I need a village already? Do I need another village? Or like, because I have like these stop cards that, I haven't gotten rid of yet, or I can't get rid of, and, what distribution do I need? And this, similar to, like, I talked about, like, with farm hands for the Corn Guild's previews. I mean, it's a different way of doing it, but this card does have the effect of like smoothing that out a little bit, because, there's like it happens all the time where you're like, okay, I have like a terminal, I add another terminal, and then I add a village, and then like I shuffle my deck, and my village is on top, and then my 2 terminals are in the next hand. It's like, well, that didn't do anything.
Yeah.
This card obviously like makes that less likely, because if you don't see, even if I was talking about like you need to find your draw card to continue your turn or whatever, but there's also this situation, I didn't see either of my terminals, let me just like try to find one of them so that I like haven't totally I don't collide, or I haven't like totally wasted the village effect or whatever. So yeah, I can see that like being true like earlier in the game. And obviously, yeah, if aren't able to maintain control throughout the game. So yeah, I mean, that's probably it feel I don't know, it still feels like the effect is like not that strong to me, but maybe that's not actually right, and maybe if you do it enough, then it sort of necessarily means that it's strong. I guess we'll see. All right.
Poet is one of those sometimes labs, this time drawing cards costing $3 or less.
Yeah, nothing missed there.
And there are 3 prophecies today. Rapid Expansion makes gained actions and treasures leap into play next turn. Gain 8 cards and you will have 8 things waiting. Gain a copper. Well, it's not strictly true, right? They have to be actions and treasures.
Yes.
Gain a copper and, well, that will be waiting. Most things are happy to be set aside like this, but some can be sad. Consider Sculptor.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because Sculptor gains to hand anyway, so you might want to, like, you talked about gain and play. Sculptor, like, can gain and play, like, out of the box.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, Falconer.
All of that good stuff.
Hill Fort.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes Hill Fort you would rather set aside the card, but not always.
Oh, does this override them?
University, potentially, like, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, University still gains the discard pile. I don't know. It's mostly the gain to hand stuff where it's really like.
I was thinking of Scholar. I was like, why is that bad?
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, Sculptor and Scholar are linked in my brain.
Pretty similar, phonetically.
And they start with the same 2 letters, and yeah. All
right,
the
so
same distribution of letters. Okay. Panic means all of your treasures will go away, but give +2 buys while they vanish. You will have to somehow make progress without treasures or else buy a lot of coppers back, which you'll have the buys to do. We think of everything. That's such a Donald X thing to say.
Yes, it is. All right, and then we've got Kind Emperor simply hands over an action at the start of each turn, and when you first trigger it, take an expensive one or the one that your hand needs. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just, oh, I'm so looking forward to Kind Emperor games. Yeah. That's the previews.
So do you think there will be a mean emperor? A rude emperor?
Interesting. A vengeful emperor. I don't know. I hope not. I like there to just be, I like the Dominion Emperor to just be a kind emperor.
I don't think there will be either. But I would be surprised if there wasn't, like, so with allies, like most of the allies are, giving you some kind of benefit, right? But there was Gang of Pickpockets. I will be surprised if there is not a Gang of Pickpockets equivalent for this, right?
Yeah.
So we have these
Like
game
a
state
ninja
changers, like
or
something that's
something.
like mostly negative.
Yeah.
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 Like,
I mean, you would have. Panic sounds mostly negative as a concept, not like as the prophecy.
Yeah. No, I mean like I'm expecting there to be something that's like that is like just like Gang of Pickpockets. It's like you get discard attacked at the start of your turn or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Trash a card costing at least 3 from your hand at the start of your turn. I don't know, like
a super cathedral.
Yeah. Well, like a cathedral that doesn't let you trash drunk or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would probably be too much. But like I do expect there to be something along those lines.
Yeah.
I'll also be interested to see whether there's anything that changes like scoring conditions the way that landmarks do, because this seems like the sort of thing that like could like obviously, so landmarks are all about scoring and these aren't, but they're otherwise like and these have to be activated and landmarks don't, but they're both game state modifiers, right? They don't like require, unlike events or projects or allies or whatever, they don't require that you like once they've been activated, they don't require you accumulate a resource, they don't require that you like choose to interact with them, they just are. And so like with landmark, like you could do there's some design overlap there where you could do some of the same
don't know
types of things.
Yeah, I don't know if those things wouldn't be too similar, and for that reason you won't get like any VP stuff.
It's certainly possible, but on the other hand, I feel like the fact that it has to be activated could mean that you can go like in a different direction with it than you could with a landmark where it's guaranteed to be active.
But I feel like for that the amount of tokens is too low.
Yeah,
I feel like if you wanted to do more VP stuff, you would just add more landmarks.
Maybe. Well, I mean, the problem is you'd have to bring back, if you wanted it to be specifically landmarks, you have to bring back that as a mechanic, and now you have to have a whole bunch of landmarks. But here you could do like one VP, because that's
don't
just
you have like
the way.
I mean, I wasn't there for when all of the landscapes happened, but like Menagerie got some additional events and stuff, right?
Yeah, but it has a lot of events. No, there's no set that has like 1, 2, 3 events. Every set that has events has a whole bunch of them. And there's only one set with landmarks, and there's a whole bunch of them. There's only one set with projects, and there's a whole bunch of them. There's only one set with allies, and there's a whole bunch of them, and so on. Traits, ways, like that's
why?
I mean, like with some things, it's explainable through like component limits. Like you don't want to put one card with coffers or villagers or whatever in, although some of the early expansions kind of did do that sort of thing, but like at some point that stopped. And it's like if you're gonna add something that involves like extra physical components, you want to make sure you're getting value out of having like put that in the box. But I think part of it is just like if you're gonna have to, like, people don't necessarily have other expansions, right? So you have to explain the mechanic.
Yeah, and then you have to have tokens and stuff, right? And you maybe don't want to add like the VP token if you don't otherwise need it.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
but not all landmarks require the like VP chip token, so that in and of itself doesn't necessarily matter. But what does matter is you have to explain like what a landmark is,
Mm.
right? And if you have like one landmark, it's like, well, why do we, why are we having like this mechanic for one thing? But here you could have one prophecy that like says like it changes scoring conditions in some way, or like end game conditions, right? Like you could have a prophecy that is like now you does require 4 piles to end the game or something. I don't know. Like, right? It could, it could do something like that because it's a game state modifier.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's not okay. Wow.
Buying out the provinces doesn't end the game. Like that won't. There's no way. But like, but
Do you
yeah,
really think
like
that could happen?
the provinces thing?
No. Like the 4 piles thing. That sounds.
Yes, I think that could happen. It could go the other direction too. Although that would be
No. It's like really boosting the game.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, sorry, we need seven drink games.
I don't think a like a one like a one more pile thing would be too crazy. Like, I mean, it would be.
You're really thinking outside the box here. I'm like, there are rules, and we can't mess with them.
This isn't numb. There are rules. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that I expect anything in particular like that. I just think that there's a lot of potential design space here, and I'm interested to see where it goes. I mean, probably the if anything, probably the main reason not to think about it in terms of like landmark stuff is because like is more like we've been there and done that, and we can do other stuff that we couldn't do with landmarks because landmarks were all about scoring. Although I think landmarks are only about scoring because that's just like the thematic choice for them. Like there's nothing intrinsically like about them that would have required that they only affect scoring. It's like again, it's like it's a game state modifier, but now we have these things which are just like kind of open-endedly game state modifiers, so it could really be anything.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like Shaman Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. Like you don't need Shaman or Footpad or whatever, right? Like this is it's almost, and in fact it almost, now that I'm thinking about it, almost feels like Shaman and Footpad are like prophecy outtakes. Right? It's like because the effects, I mean, the shaman effect and what it does as a card are somewhat related to each other, obviously, because shaman can trash. Footpad, though, like Footpad's above the line and below the line just have nothing to do with each other, really. I mean, very minimally, because like Footpad is a hand size attack, and if you're like increasing your opponent's hand size by like making them gain actions during your action phase, and you can hand size attack them, but like that's pretty marginal. Like mostly it's just like, here's this thing that like that could have been a prophecy, right? And like so you wonder like, is that a prophecy outtake?
Yeah. No, it's fun to think of it as like part of an evolution. Yeah, that makes definitely makes sense.
I mean it could be the other way around, right? Where like Footpad was designed and then it was like, how do we do more stuff like this without having to like take this effect and staple it to a random card? Like, here you go.
Here we go. Donald X did it again. That's very fun. Just because like these are up right now, I had a thought about that. I guess like it would have been nice. I guess the way that making a game and marketing and publishing it works right now doesn't really provide for that, but it would have felt appropriate to maybe only have Asian artists provide the art if it's like an expansion, that is. But I understand that someone like they probably have people like under contract that have to provide the art. But I just noticed that like some of the artists
do appear to be
to appear to be Asian.
I have no idea how they go about selecting the artists. Like I mean, other than to say that I have the impression that that's more the responsibility of the publisher than it is like Donald X. Like,
I mean, of course, yeah. I think Donald X can provide like pointers, like I said before, right? Like he has said multiple times with please can include like this and that. But that's and
there are certain artists that they bring back over and over.
Yes, like Klaus Stefan.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you pull up the?
But I
prophecies.
wonder about like the Japanese Dominion community is pretty big. I wonder if any of them are like any of there's any relationship between like, okay, we have some some new artists for this East Asian themed expansion, and like if there's any interaction there with the Japanese Dominion community.
Yeah, I'm so curious about like their takes about art and stuff, and like what cards, card names and things, and like the whole idea of representation.
Well, there was the whole card guessing game, right? And one of the confirmed names is Divine Wind, which is like the
sounds like a prophecy to me.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. Excuse me, I don't know all the details about this, but apparently that's what kamikaze means.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
But like obviously like that has some other associations with it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, are they is the Japanese version just gonna have a card or landscape or whatever called kamikaze? Is that gonna people like, what are people gonna think about that if they do? Like I don't know. But I think Donald X's answer to that was like, I don't know. It's like, okay, fair enough.
That is fair enough, yeah.
But apparently the Divine Wind thing was like a historical event, kind of like what was the thing with the Spanish Armada? It was like
what was the thing with the Spanish Armada?
There was what the Spanish Armada was gonna like attack Britain, and then there was like some big storm or something.
Divine Wind.
Well, they didn't call it that, but it was like a similar. I had the impression that it was a similar thing from what I briefly read. Where, like there's some like major historical event where like this wind like protected, somebody from invasion or whatever. I wish I could remember the Spanish Armada one, but leave a comment if you know the name of the thing that prevented the Spanish Armada from attacking Britain, because I don't remember, and I guess I'm probably too lazy to Google.
And it's very important.
It's very important
to this discussion.
That's right. Okay, well, I think we can wrap it up at this point. I think we've maybe lost the thread a little bit, but
what? No, this looks extremely fun. Very. I may not sound like it, but I'm very hyped to play this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always
as soon as it is available.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it is not currently available on Dominion.games. There are going to be videos of playtesters playing on there, but there is currently no confirmed release date for the expansion on Dominion.games, so it is still anybody's guess when we will actually be able to play with these on there. It will be released on August 10th on TGG, but I will not be playing it on TGG.
Nah.
So, yeah.
We will be patient.
Yes. And or hasty, depending on, how our rapid expansion goes.
But we will not be cheap.
No. Well, actually, yes, because that's probably why I wouldn't be playing it on TGG.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
We won't be reckless.
That's right.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for Previews Day 2.
The game has ended.
Bye.